Today I have the pleasure of being with Peter Cashin. He's the CEO and president for Quest Rare Minerals. Peter, how are you today?
Good, Tracy. How about yourself?
I'm good, and I would like to start by congratulating you on your recent pre-feasibility study announcement.
Thank you very much. We're very proud of the study results.
So Peter, let's start by talking about the pre-feasibility study. Talk to me about the results.
Well, obviously we presented a financial model that's very robust, pre-tax, after-tax, both in terms of the internal rate of return and the net present value at 10 or 12% discount rates. We've always said that as a bare minimum we would require at least a after-tax 20% internal rate of return, and we've got that. We've got about 22%. It is a large industrial investment, but it is also a very, very large operation that will be an important source of critical heavy rare earths as well as niobium and zirconium long term.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, robust may be an understatement depending on who you ask, because we're looking at $2.5 billion. But Ty Dinwoody, one of our writers, was telling me that this just isn't, another effort for a rare earth mining project. This is an industrial development of substantial size and could arguably be the major source for supercritical materials in North America. Can you talk to me about this?
Well, that's a very good point, and that's always been our marketing intentions going forward. Strange Lake will provide the catalyst for the establishment of a brand new economic sector for Canada and certainly the province of Quebec. And the spin-offs of that is having purified high purity individual rare earths is the potential that it could lead to the stimulation of manufacturing capacity. And for any government, that's what they want. From the federal government, it's much higher level. They see that having a source of these critical metals provides them with a bit of a bargaining chip, certainly when they're in negotiation for free trade zones. And they become an important source for those critical metals for their partnerships. NAFTA, now the EU free trade zone, NATO, etc.
Well, most of our readers understand more complex aspects of heavy rare earths versus light rare earths and medium rare earths. But can you talk to us overall? I know that you have some rare earth elements like holmium and lutetium, and can you talk to us about some of your more high value rare earths that you have on the property?
Well, I would suggest that 85% of the materials that we produce from Strange Lake come from the critical rare earth element end, which is neodymium, yttrium, europium, dysprosium. And we're using lutetium because I think you brought up lutetium and holmium because it's actually a very important component to scanners and medical technologies. We include them because some of the discussions that we have with end users are specifically for those elements, so we want to include them. But like I say, the 85% of the value proposition of the deposit comes from the critical heavy rare earth element end, as well as niobium and zirconium. We've placed the zirconium, which is particularly important with TAM down in the United States. Now we're looking for sources for the niobium. It's a small amount of material, really won't be very impactful on the niobium market. And we're actually advancing discussions on trying to place and get partnerships for the critical rares.
So with your pre-feasibility study that's just out, you've had some sizable announcements over the last year. What should investors expect, say, over the next 6 months, Peter?
Well, I think the important, the critical aspect of what we've presented in the pre-feasibility study is that we have advanced the metallurgical work on the rare earth ores to the point where we're actually able to report fairly robust yields in the low 80s to mid 80s, and as well as for niobium and zirconium. We're now at the point we've gone through the mini pilot plant work, and we're now disassembling that plant. We're building out for a full-scale pilot plant that should be up and running by the middle of the year, or actually end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter. And that's important because then it'll allow us with an opportunity to optimize the flow sheet that we've developed so far. And what we also announced in the press release last week is that there are numerous opportunities to optimize the model that we presented in the PFS. that will positively impact the CapEx that we reported, as well as the operating expense that we reported for the operation. Things like, as opposed to a high purity niobium product, we produce a concentrate, a 2,9 niobium concentrate for the ferroniobium market. We would put a pre-concentration unit right on site to be able to reduce the amount of materials that we would ship from the mine itself through to the process plant that's going to be located in southern Quebec. We're very close to making an announcement exactly of where that process plant will be in very short order. And there's lots of opportunity, I think, to improve the yields. A 3% improvement in the yields that we reported actually will add up to 1.1% on the internal rate of return.
Okay, so as leaders in the rare earth industry, you're highly regarded. We've had a lot of news recently about the World Trade Organization ruling against the Chinese rare earth exports. We've, of course, had the downgrade by JP Morgan for Molycorp, and also the forecasting of lower rare earth prices. Would you like to comment on that for our audience?
I think as a general rule, and I've always cautioned our shareholders, and I think in the instance, the other interviews that we've had together, that I expressed concern that, especially on the light lanthanide end, that prices would either stabilize at lower levels or long-term floor prices, or else deteriorate even further, because in essence, with the incoming production at Molycorp and Lynas, we will eliminate the deficit situation to a point where we're in oversupply. And I've always emphasized for Strange Lake that it is a heavy lanthanide project, and that's really where the perceived long-term deficit situations are going to be. Really, we don't know where the market's going to go. We just know that the supply of heavy lanthanides has been quite constrained. Like anything else, if you build it, they will come. So ultimately, our view is that if we bring comfort to the market that we will be a reliable long-term source of critical rares, then I think that the level of consumption will follow in kind over time. You mentioned the WTO. I was sitting in Geneva last week with a number of ambassadors for the representative countries in Geneva for the WTO, and I was expecting a battle royale over the dinner, but it's quite tame. And that was actually the day before the announcement that the U.S., Japan, and the EU actually won their case against China. But we've yet to see exactly what the actions that are going to be required of China on those things. But I think that they could give concessions on the light lanthanides, but ultimately I think that China does have a case that they've got a finite supply of the heavies, and they want to protect that at all costs.
Okay, so for Quest shareholders and interested speculators looking at Quest, some of your most competitive advantages is the size of your heavy rare earth.
Size, supply, the fact that it's in a jurisdiction that's very supportive of what we're doing. The Quebec government realizes that if in lending support both financially and the application of new fiscal measures in support of a rare earth industry, that it could potentially lead to a very important contribution to the provincial economy over the long term.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining me today.